right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, fellow Pandemonium travelers, this is Seattle Pandemonium Shutdown Day 140 by my count, if my count is accurate, if I'm to be trusted. It's a little bit, once again, it's a little bit different here, because the early domestic cases were here, so we started quarantining before much of the rest of the country, and so we're a few days ahead of some of you, so the count might be different, but we are now, I don't know, I mean, again, part of the purpose of recording these videos is not just to rant or ramble about current events, which is also what I do, but to document the return to life, like the traffic, okay? So this right now, this is Highway 99, which goes from like Canada to Mexico. This stretch, it's called Aurora Avenue, but it's Highway 99. And this is more traffic than I've seen on here in quite some time. So again, part of my work that I need to do is to go back to the beginning of the pandemic when there was no traffic. And I'm going to try to document the return to normal life. So, that being said, if you've been watching these videos, you know exactly, you've already heard this before. But I've also said that this is like a weird pandemic Groundhog Day kind of thing, because like the same things keep coming up over and over again. Nonsense about COVID-19, the pandemic, the numbers are goofy, politics. I've covered the wokeness sort of movement and everything. Look, we are in a mixture of different problems and issues that it just is mind-boggling, right? Like, you take these riots, right? So, in Portland, they rioted again last night and lit fires, and then the federal, cops came out and I assume arrested some people. All I kind of saw was them scattering people with video, but I'm sure there's probably some arrests and stuff like that. But what is their purpose? Their purpose is to reform law enforcement for the purposes of preventing things like the George Floyd killing, because Black Lives Matter, right? We've been over this and over this and over this ad nauseum. And I'm trying to connect, this is like the Chopper, the Chaz, right? I'm trying to connect what they're doing with Black lives and those Black Lives Mattering, okay? And it's just sort of bizarre because it's a different part of the country. I suppose they have the same problem. There are probably local cases of police malfeasance. But put that on top of everyone trying to handle the coronavirus, the pandemics, the shutdowns, what I called drowning the global economy in the bathtub, which is essentially what we did. Everyone's livelihoods, their futures, and anecdotally, there's things that you might not think of in terms of like quality of life things. Like, I saw a tweet from a Catholic priest of all people. I think it was a Catholic priest who said he gave absolution or last rites or whatever to a woman who was dying, but her children weren't allowed to go in a group and see her, like she died alone, basically, or with like one child. Oh, goodness gracious. Wait, is the tunnel backed up? This is hilarious. I haven't had to stop on 99, I don't think, in many months. Many months, guys. Life is returning to normal. He said that they couldn't, the woman couldn't have her whole family in the hospital room with her because that would violate the COVID guidelines. But, all these people are gathered, again, in like a giant mosh pit in the street in places like Portland. And that isn't looked at as, like, the media are doing this stupid two-step kind of thing about this. Like, that's okay because it's for the right reason or something. It's just obnoxious. And the point in your life where you're not allowed to be there for your dying mother because the state said you can't, but then people just violate the state guidelines regardless and just go out and do whatever they want in the streets. Like, you gotta chew on that for a second. Like, let that sink in. People are missing graduations, weddings, funerals, etc. They're missing out on life because the state told them that they have to not gather in large groups, etc., etc. Okay? Like, you gotta... I mean, it's tough. And then on top of that, like, layoffs and unemployment and joblessness and everything. Like, everyone's mental health is always relatively fragile, okay? And then you take all this shit and you pile it on top of people who are already stressed by just modern living, never mind our actual, traumas and struggles. Like, you like Trump or you don't like Trump, or you're making it, you're not making it, but you work hard, that's why you're making it. It's still straining you, even if you're being successful. Like, we weren't designed to kind of like handle all these stresses like all at one time. So people are freaking out a little bit. And I can understand that, right? And I think we all need to understand that. Like, we all need to like give everyone an extra second to be a little wound up, honestly. I mean, God. Like, if you're not anxious a little bit, you're not paying attention to like what's going on. Never mind the election year, never mind the pandemic, but just how things were before this was enough to give you anxiety. Now it's just ramped up. It's ramped up it's dialed up to 11. But anyways, the rioting. Okay, if they stopped trying to besiege that federal building, those marshals and border patrol or whatever, those guys would leave because there would be no threat to the building being burned down, because local law enforcement aren't doing anything because Ted Wheeler, bless his heart, is the police commissioner. I believe that was the term. I think yesterday I couldn't think of the word. I think he's police commissioner, whatever that means. He's not allowing, Portland PD to do riot control because he doesn't want the bad optics on his watch. I mean, that's basically what it is. Like, he doesn't want more videos of police arresting people and clubbing people and spraying people and all this. I mean, he doesn't want that on his watch, regardless of how he feels about things. Like, he could feel like it's the right thing to do to not go out and police these protesters. Again, protester, rioter. Two different things, right? So he needs to police the rioters. He needs to ensure the safety of the protesters. This is in the span of a couple hours, you go from one to the other. Here's a large, peaceful protest. You have risks of things like stampedes, I don't know, a terrorist attack. Like, someone could crash a car into these crowds, someone could set up a bomb around these crowds, someone could do a mass shooting in these crowds. You have to be aware of all these things when you have these large gatherings, right? There's public health and safety issues by having a large gathering of people. Then you have the rioting, and the rioters join the peaceful protest early on, and then later they start destroying things and like attacking people and lighting things on fire. Okay, so in the course of one, demonstration, let's say, you go from trying to keep a giant crowd of people safe from themselves in some instances to later doing riot control, where you have to disperse crowds of people with less than lethal or, deterrents, right? Tear gas and pepper spray and stuff. Now, what are they trying to do? What they're trying to do is force the city to negotiate so that they get something they want, and they use the continued threat of this continuous violent pressure to force the city's hand. Something like that, right? And they have some demands, and some of the demands are absurd, but it's because this is like a Trump thing. You do a big ask first, and then you dial it back as you go along to somewhere where you actually wanted to be. That's fine. I mean, that's negotiation. But the problem is, and this is the giant optics puzzle of this whole thing, is how does this play for the election? Because this is quite honestly very much about the 2020 election. Very much so. The Democrats are playing a game of trying to make Trump look bad. They're trying to draw Trump into, releasing these, letting the dogs off the leash, I guess. Letting loose the troops on the people so that they can paint him as the authoritarian Hitler, orange man bat. That is part of what is happening. On top of that, you have the pandemic, and they're trying to blame Trump for the body count on the pandemic. Okay? I can understand that because of the way people have been conditioned to think that the federal government is supposed to be like all powerful. The federal government did the New Deal under FDR, Lend-Lease and World War II, and defeated the Nazis and the Japanese, and built the nuclear bomb, and NASA is like a federal government program, and put a man on the moon, and I don't know, the TVA or Tennessee Valley Authority. I don't know. Look, the point is, the federal government is quite powerful, but not powerful in the way that allows for complete control over the spread of a freaking pathogen. Like, what are you talking about? Like, well, we do that to each other. Like, the government can't stop things like hate crimes, because hate is a thing in people's minds, and then they crime on each other because they hate each other for whatever reason. And then it becomes classified as a hate crime because the government decides that that's how it should be classified. And we can't stop that. And that's not even contagious. Like, you can't catch racism from a doorknob. I don't know. I don't know what, again, if Trump had done what you would need to do to help stop the spread of the coronavirus, it would have been about as ugly as what it looked like China did. Police, stay in your home. Don't come out for a month. You had people, my understanding is that in China they had people starving to death inside their, apartments because they didn't have food, but it was no, you can't go out. They welded doors shut on buildings and things. If you wanted Trump to control this thing, that's what it would have looked like. It would have taken measures that would have made him look even worse. So, to put the body count on Trump, and his response is clearly partisan, while you could probably nitpick it regardless and find, they should have taken it more serious early on. Okay, everybody should have. It's not uniquely this administration's fault, that things have played out this way. And in fact, again, it's the same with the rioting, it's the same with the Black Lives Matter and the policing. largely Democrat cities that have been Democrat run for a long time, and states, blue states, that are the source of the body count. Both in terms of, oh, come on, go. Oh, just go. Just go. You'll be fine. I'm gonna honk. I don't want to honk, but I'm gonna honk. There you go. Okay. You were gonna be under the light. There's no cross traffic, sweetie. Okay. Where was I? Trying to lay this all on Trump, the election. So what I'm seeing is, and this is from arguing with people like online and stuff, is that people think that the rioting is actually because of Trump, which is funny because this all started under Obama, the Black Lives Matter and all that. But people also think that the pandemic body count is Trump's fault. I don't really think it is, or not in the way they think it is. That it's just complete malfeasance on his part, as opposed to it's complicated and it's a pathogen, and we still haven't figured out whether you should wear a mask or not. Okay, I don't know if you should or not. Like, I am, because I'm being asked to at work. I suggest people do, because my understanding is that it doesn't really hurt you and it might help. That's my understanding. You should wash your hands, okay? This is my understanding, but the inclarity of it, like the imprecision of the messaging about what we're supposed to be doing is incredibly obnoxious. Never mind unsafe. Like, maybe we shouldn't be wearing masks at all. Maybe that makes you breathe the coronavirus back in, and if you do that too many times, then it builds up in your system or something. Like, we just don't know. It's really obnoxious. So when people act like they know what to do in the pandemic, you don't have access to information that I don't have. You're speculating like everybody else is speculating. It's obnoxious. Did we slip by? Oh, come on, go. Man, there's a lot of traffic today. It's a Friday, though. Life is returning to normal. But in the election year, these things are being kind of piled on, and it's trying to be painted as though this is like Trump's fault. Now, you don't have to vote for Trump, or you don't have to listen to me, but I'm telling you, these things are not really Trump's fault. Again, argue his rhetoric, argue his specific management of it if you want to, but like, every president that faces challenges faces these kinds of things. And it's just, and it was the same under Obama, and this is the problem that Biden has running for president, is he backed that crime bill back in like the 90s that contributed to locking up lots of young black men. And he was, Obama's VP. Well, Black Lives Matter, again, started under Obama, and this is one of the rich ironies of the whole thing, is Biden and Obama were in there for 8 years. That's nearly a decade. And they didn't really do prison reform. They didn't do law enforcement reform. They didn't do, they pardoned some criminals as like Obama was leaving office, like he pardoned some guys, but like that's it. Like, other than that, like that's their legacy. And now he's running as this quasi-progressive, I'm totally not racist and Donald Trump is. And I find it funny because it's just like, I bet you Biden probably is as racist as Trump, if not more, because they're kind of from the same era. And they just, they would say like the blacks, like that kind of racist, even. And like, again, all these things relate to this election. Why? Because of the power dynamics of this country. Think about, again, having control, over the largest economy, one of the largest, I think it's the largest nuclear weapons stockpile in the world, basically the largest, most effective military in the world. Think about having control over that. What is not on the table in terms of how do I gain control over this thing? What wouldn't someone do to achieve that level of power and authority and wealth as a result of controlling that power and authority? I mean, these people all like hobnobbed with Epstein and others, you know. It's not a game at that level. And so we are naive if we think like, oh, this is partisan politics. It really matters, and the outcome really, really matters. And that Trump, we got to stop him. Yeah, do ya? Is that what's going on here? Uh-huh. Wow. I am cynical. That's enough from me for one day. All right. Bye.